This program has been rated mature by the Gaming Radio Network. It is unsuitable for under 18s due to content of an adult nature, which may be classed as offensive to some people.
And that is how we start a show. It is Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock GMT. It's the 31st of January 2015. And this is another episode of This Week in New Eden. Eve Radio's only premier talk show, maybe, whatever you want to call it. It's just what it is. Hello, my name's Wiggles, and how are you doing? Thank you for tuning in live on Sunday afternoon. If you are or watching us live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Eve Radio Live, to watch the live video version, because we have a live video version and all of that. We're live on there. I am joined this week by the man who should have been here last week, but the internet trolled him so hard that it actually made things fall over and break. Mr. Matterall from the Matterall.com, the Eve News Bureau Chief, basically. You know what, Matterall? Give the ladies and gentlemen, the listeners out there in Radio Land and Podcast Land, give them the 5 second or the 10-15 second elevator pitch of what you do as Bureau Chief.
Sure, actually, thanks for inviting me, and I'm sorry I'm a week late, a week and 2 hours. I did get trolled by the internet. I used an hour converter, and it came up with 9 o'clock instead of 7, so it went the wrong way. And I'm really sorry about that. So I'm glad to be here. And as far as Bureau Chief for TMC or the Matani.com, I actually wear a couple hats working for them, but as far as the content part, the Bureau Chief is the person responsible for Eve News. They do have other games that they cover, not as much, but they do, and those games are out of my purview. So anything that has to do with Eve and Eve-related topics are things that I kind of own. And that means take responsibility for and gather and make sure that the quality is all there.
Oh, that's yeah. Again, that's pretty much what I thought, and it's just letting the people know, how things are. And you used to be, was it editor? You was one of the editors at Eve News 24.
Yeah, I worked at EN24 for about a year before that, and I was editor. And besides that, I was kind of, things at News 24 are a lot less formal. So there was a lot more. You just did whatever you wanted to, and so in that capacity, I helped a lot of writers kind of come up, and was just kind of a guiding figure on the quality there. I was basically doing the same thing over there.
Yeah.
Of course, it's always a group effort, and there's a lot. There was 3 or 4 other editors too.
That's good. That's good. So. This week is what we call, this show is called TWiNE, This Week in New Eden. I took that from the other shows that you can see on the internet, like This Week in Tech, This Week in Enterprise Tech, This Week in... Funnily enough, there is a show that the TWiT network, which TWiT is This Week in Tech, they do a show called Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware. So I go, you're listening to Twitch, is it? And he's like, no, you're not. And you go, yeah. They've done it for like 10 years or so, something like that now, or 5-7 years. So literally, they've been running longer than Twitch has, and it's funny that we're on Twitch doing this live, and yeah.
They got stomped.
Yeah, that's what it is. But no, we call it TWiNE, This Week in New Eden. It used to be called this format of the show has always kind of been the same that I've always done. It's always been a show where I talk with a few people. There's a show called Twit. Yes, there is Limani Tirshan in-game. It's called This Week in Tech. TWIT. It's twit.tv. It's Leo Laporte's tech network. He runs out of Petaluma in California. He's actually really good. He does loads of podcasts and stuff on there. No, basically, this format of this show has always been a similar sort of thing, where we have me as a co-host, as a host, anchor sort of thing, and a guest on to talk about stuff. It used to be we talked about technology news and gaming news as well as Eve stuff when it was the GRN show, and then we moved it to Thursday nights and we called it TNT, Thursday Night Talk. And it was me and Dirk and a few others, and we just talked about stuff. We used to do it Thursday nights from 10 till midnight. It was basically when I moved from Sundays, and then I came back to Sundays earlier, and I just like to do it early, and we do an hour worth of talk and this, and I podcast it out, and then we use some music and stuff like that, so that's what it is.
I didn't realize you were TNT as well.
Yeah, I was TNT. I did TNT on thing. So Charlie 2012 says works at twit.tv. Do you work there, Charlie? If you do, hello, thank you very much. So basically, yeah, this is where I kind of stole the name for the show. And anyway, so you work
really?
he works. Charlie, you work on TNT, do you? Really? So you work with Jason and Megan? Nice. This is the thing. This is the meta of the meta where podcasters think, oh, you do this, whatever. Anyway.
This is I always like your shows because you had a nice variety of Eve, and then you also went into technology news, which I thought was interesting.
Well, I kind of stole that from a few other shows. Derek says, Twit, the 2-hour ad. Yeah, but the thing is, Twit's a good. The thing is, I like Twit. I like those shows. And again, they're like podcasts that I listen to throughout the week. So I listen to all the Eve podcasts that come out. Then I listen to tech podcasts and gaming podcasts. Like I listen to The Instance and Scott Johnson and that. And I listen to those, and that's what I do. I just keep my day going through. And funnily enough, I never listen to my own shows unless someone else has done it for me. So when we did the New Eden update, and I had to take some days out, and our French guy Flail did it, and he did it, I would just listen to that one because I wanted to see how he did it. So yeah. But anyway, let's get on to what we're here for, to talk about this week's news in Eve. Where do we want to start? I think the big thing, one of the big things this week, apart from we knew that there have been the calls out for the CCP have put the call out for player speakers at FanFest. We'll get to that in a bit. Something the news that I saw earlier on today, actually, when I was prepping the show, up from East News 24, actually, was an REVE leak. And I don't class it as a leak because it's not really a leak when it's posted on Reddit. It's just a post. That Sleeper Social Club are closing their doors. That's shocking news. I really think that's a bit of shocking news. And I'll post it in the channels now. And the Sleeper Social Club, if you don't know who Sleeper Social Club are, they're kind of one of the big names in Wormhole sort of PvP. They're sort of one of those, they're out there that just, they can appear from anywhere and kind of rape you hard. I mean, this is the thing. It says, for those unfamiliar with Sleeper Social Club, it's worth taking a look at their history. Founded by James Argent, former Eve University pilot in YC113, they're a Wormhole PvP alliance. For their years of living in a C2 named R1, through their latest home, a C5 named R3, SSC has become a well-known name and a force not to be taken lightly. Having completed in both past alliance tournaments and the EVNT Collides, they are currently ranked within the top 100 alliances on the Z Kill board, all-time rank 110. And it's interesting to see how it's going to be a shame if they're closing their doors. And again, is this a trend we've been seeing recently, Matterall, with various alliances and groups of players sort of shutting up shop and saying, well, we're not going to do this or we're going to go elsewhere? Have you seen this out there?
I don't think it's a trend as far as wormholes go, but I'm probably not as versed on wormhole activity as most people. I did notice there's been a lot of activity over the last year in wormholes, but I haven't seen places collapsing any faster than they were over that last year. So you had No Holds Barred and other places that were big as well kind of closing. So this just seems like some people ran out of steam and they don't have a good legacy to pass it on to somebody else, and it's probably splintering that way. It doesn't look like there's drama. This post looks like it's RP'd, by the way, which is why they put the year when it was founded in Eve years, YC113, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, are these guys a branch off of, and I may be, but I think they're a branch off of Adhocracy, and are they the ones that went to war with Adhocracy, another Wormhole Corp, and knocked them out of their hole?
I think so.
If it was them, then this guy that founded it was a member of Adhocracy and broke off in kind of a bitter way and then formed his own group, and I think it was this group, Sleeper Social Club, and they came back for revenge and got revenge because they took out Adhocracy from their hole, which was a big deal because Adhocracy was a long-standing wormhole corporation.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things that's, again, it's never good to see people and corporations and things like that leave.
Well, who knows where they're going? They may not be leaving the game. They just may be joining other corporations or trying something new. There's a lot of activity now, people getting prepared for Citadels. So maybe people are saying, I want part of that gameplay, and I'm going to shut my doors over here, but I'm going to open doors over here.
Exactly. And the thing is, the Citadel thing as well, a lot of people are speculating, oh, this, that, we're not going to have enough to do this, or there's not going to be enough to do that. The thing is with Citadels, right, I keep listening, I keep hearing Lockfox say it on the Prosper Show. He says that there's not enough P4s on the market right now, if you bought all of them up, to build a Citadel, to build the extra large. So that's going to be a massive supply problem when Citadels kick off. I think that's going to be a massive, massive supply problem.
Yeah, it's interesting. Didn't think of just the amount of materials that are going to be used. Although that's on the market, and there are a lot of people who have a huge amount of stuff stacked away, maybe even in preparation. But there are people who are building caps that may say, "I'm going to take these resources and move them over to building citadels."
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The first citadels are going to be. I mean, the first citadel itself will be, marked down in history. So people are going to want that prize for themselves. They want that name associated with it.
Yes.
The subsequent ones, you start thinking about the balance of risk and how much you're investing into this thing that's going to become a huge target.
Yeah, and this is the thing, the Citadels are going to be a massive target. The first, as you said, you rightly said, the first one to go down is going to be a massive target for all the big alliances out there. And not even so much the big alliances, but, just the groups out there that want to go take pot shots at it, or maybe just try and take it out. Because 100% that when the first one goes down, whoever puts it down, whether it be the Imperium, whether it be Goonswarm or another member corp of the Imperium, Alliance of the Imperium, or someone else that puts it down, everyone else is going to find out. Well, obviously find out where it is, because it's going to be listed on Dotland, because all that information will be there, and they're going to go for it. It's going to be an all hands on deck to try and take it out. Because as soon as that first XL goes down, it's going to be, right, well, what are we going to do? We're going to blow it up.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who declare, like Elise Randolph from Pandemic Legion, or was it? No, it was Grath actually from Pandemic Legion, said, I want people to build sandcastles so I can go and knock them down.
Yes.
They live for that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Incidentally, they also don't have a citadel, they don't have a base, so they have nothing to be destroyed, but they are always in pursuit of destroying other people's stuff.
Exactly.
And that's an interesting game style that's been around for a while now. It's called like the Merc life, where you basically just take contracts and blow people up, but you don't have anything they can blow up. It's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like nullsec ganking, if you think of the parallels there, that I'm just going to lose my stuff destroying your stuff, and that's really my only purpose, but I have nothing where you can retaliate towards.
Yeah. And that's it. You think about it, the way Eve has always, the way the game has always been, I don't want to say broadcast, but it's been sold to people, that it's been a game that you can do whatever you want. Now, within the caveat of reasons of, obviously, I can't put, I can't drive my my Titan by in high sec and DD everyone because YOLO swag 420 blaze it no scope, that sort of stuff. You can't do that. Rules and limits of the game. But there are people going, well, why can't I do this? Why can't I take that Titan and dock it in a station? Well, because it technically breaks the physics inside the station and that, because it won't go in, because the whatever. But with Citadels and with extra larges, yeah, of course you will be able to dock them. You'll be able to dock super capitals and stuff like that. Because remember, and you probably know this, Matterall, as well as I do, back when CCP first thought about the game, they didn't envision everyone and their dog having their own Titan.
No, it was a group effort. In fact, the scale of these citadels reminds me of the introduction of Titans, because the prediction was that, maybe there'll be 2 or 3 of them, because the requirements were so massive. But Eve, CCP has always underestimated the ingenuity of Eve players in how they can group and scale effort. And even amongst themselves, one person with 10 accounts can get 10 times the amount of ISK than somebody with 1.
Exactly.
In most games, there's a diminishing return, so it discourages that kind of behavior. But in Eve, that doesn't really exist.
And that's
so, who knows how fast these citadels will be built? But it's probably going to be a lot faster than their predictive models.
Oh, I'm 100% sure. As you and as I probably both know, the Eve player base is nothing to be underestimated, shall we say?
No, these guys are super smart. They're older, more established, generally tech-oriented players, and Yeah, they can't be underestimated. They know programming. They make great third-party applications to help them, get better in the game.
Exactly.
It's a wealth of knowledge.
Exactly. And we're going to see that hopefully within the next, few months. We'll start seeing the inklings of it. And obviously, recently, this past week, and so there have been mass tests on Singularity for Citadel changes and stuff like that, where you go out there and like, we're going to change this and go and do this. And I remember seeing on Twitter this week, somebody was moaning that, CCP have changed all the Citadel in build progress sites, because there are, I believe there was 5 Citadel in build progress sites around New Eden. They've changed all of the structures to completely indestructible because somebody came up there and blew something up. Well, it was in the high-sec one. You're going to blow stuff up, and they just tell them, well, we're going to put it back in and make it indestructible because we want it to be shown being built over a course of time and not just be one of those things that's there and splash.
Yeah, that was really cool, because then the NPC Corporation actually declared war on, or actually banned the corporation, which I thought was pretty cool.
Again,
I don't think I've seen that before.
That's meta. You can do it, and it's great to see that sort of stuff happen. I really, really like that when that sort of stuff happens. And CCP go, well, you messed up. Well, what we're going to do? We're just going to mess around with you now.
Yeah, or they mess it up and they're like, okay, so you came over and you messed this thing up, but we're just going to put it into the RP richness of the universe and go with it. I think it's pretty brilliant.
And that's one of the other big things that does put EVE apart from other games, from your WoW or your I'm trying to think other MMOs out there, your Guild Wars 2, that sort of stuff, where the players can and sometimes do have a massive direct effect on what's been going on in the game. Not to say that Blizzard don't do that, because this week, funnily enough, I saw on the WoW subreddit, there's a player who has had a character. He wanted to level it up without taking an affiliation. Now, you normally couldn't do that, but when they introduced the Mr. Pandora expansion, you had neutral characters. They had pandas who are neutral. They can be both Horde and Alliance, but you don't choose until you finish the starting zone, normally about a level 9 or 10. But this guy didn't want to choose. He wanted to be neutral. So he leveled all the way to 90, back when it was 90, as neutral. And it's called Double Agent. He's a neutral shaman. He's not Horde, he's not Alliance. When Warlords of Draenor came out, he leveled to 100. And the thing is, he's a shaman. So it's like, oh, well, he's a Pandaren shaman on there. So what they've done, they've put him in the Pandaren class hall, which is coming out in the next expansion, which is Legion, which basically he runs around the island. They've taken the model of his characters, because he can only wear a certain amount of items, because he can't change it, he can't go and get anything new. He's got a certain amount of items, and he's just running around, herbing and mining, leveling up. And you see him every so often, he herbs around in Ghost form and he comes up. But that's what they've done. A player has done that content, so they've put that into the game. I love things like that, where the developers look at it and go, we like that, we're gonna take that and we're gonna use it.
Yeah, even on those games that are on like rails, where you have missions that you take and you do, and there's things that are expected of you, people still find ways to like fall out of the boundaries of that.
Yeah.
I remember I think it was Guild Wars, the first one, there was a training area, and one guy actually used the training area to level himself all the way up, which must have been impossibly long hours, but you could, and then it became a badge, so you could do that sort of thing. And I think that gives people a chance who've already done a bunch of things to say, all right, well, I'll try it doing it this way, and that sort of thing. And on CCP side, I think they used to do that, and they have a tradition of rolling what players do into the RP, which I thought was pretty good. I think if you look back at some of the really old entries in the I guess the news service, you'll see they adopt certain things that happen. There's some notable ones, I think. I can't think of them at the time, but if you listen to Hydrostatic Podcast ever, sometimes they'll cover those things where players get involved and kind of skew the event in a certain direction, and then instead of saying like, hey, don't do that, CCP kind of adopts it and brings it into the story. And I see that happening again now. I think lore has taken a turn because it's a lot more involved now with players. They brought scope back. That was gone for a long time. So I think there's definitely a a lore component that's new within the last year and a half, I think, that's helping a whole set of players enjoy the game a bit more.
Apparently a bounty has just been placed on Wiggles of 696,969 is. Doesn't matter, he sits in G at 4-4. Very rarely do I take that character out unless I'm doing something I need a little bit of video for, and then
they must not have liked you naming your show after theirs or something.
No, it doesn't matter. So, hello, good morning to Big Country, who's now just literally woke up. Literally, he's like, I just woke up. Oh, I know it's early. I know it's early for our US friends. Hell, look, if you think it's early for you, BC, Matterall had to get up he was up at like 10 to 6 this morning. I know, because I literally linked you the Skype doc for the thing, and you went morning. And I'm like, it's 10 to 6. I'm like, I know it is. So just. Well,
I was sure I wasn't going to miss this one.
So let's have another look. What have we got in the doc? What else have we got? We talked about that. Let's have a look. This interview with CCP Lilo at Crossing Zebras was actually really good. I actually had a quick look at this before thing. Oh, is this a Skype call? No, it's not a Skype call, BC. It's TeamSpeak, as always. I just have Skype because in case that's how I talk to people. No, you can't join on a Skype call, BC. BC, go back to sleep. Go back to sleep, BC.
You are dreaming.
This is your dream, Big Country. Go back to sleep. No, I love you, big guy. Well, I actually, fun enough, BC, I've got in contact with you. I'll have you on the show in a few weeks' time, because next week I've got Lank Ferris booked.
From CSM Watch.
Yes, and, he reached out. He reached out to me last week and said, "Do you need someone to fill in next week?" I was like, "Well, no, I've actually got Matterall rebooked. Can we book for the week after?" Because I'm trying to book people in thing, and they go, BC just said on Twitch chat, "I'm in bed rubbing myself on Skype for you." Didn't really want that image, BC, but thanks very much. Getting back to this interview with CCP Lilo here on Crossing Zebras. Apophany had an interview with her, and the standard question that comes up every time you speak to someone at CCP about the CSM, the most upvoted question from user without SK is with a new ruling on the white paper in regards to the gaming media sites, blah 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 blah. Okay, so basically, I'm gonna paraphrase this. This basically says, are you trying to ban Scion from running for CSM 11? Lilu's response: I think I've already answered this a few times. If we wanted to exclude someone in particular, we would have done that. And obviously, Matterall, you being from TMC, you can see kind of how the sausage is made behind the scenes as well with TMC, and you obviously have something with Scion and all that there. And again, I said this last week on the show. I said it last week on this show. I don't like the way that they're again, how some people, and I did single out Mittens and Scion for this, how they're going out there saying, "Oh, it's about us," or whatever. Well, no, it's not. If they were going to do it, CCP would have done it. They would have told you this is how it is, and it clearly stated. Lilo stated it out there. She said it on the interview with CSM Watch. Look, at the end of the day, we don't want our competitors on there. So we don't want people. Yeah. If you work for IGN, or you work for Kotaku, or you work for Gizmodo, or someone like, no, you can't be a CSM member because you're part of the media. Or you work for someone else. But if you work for any fan site or a site that's dedicated to Eve, or even has some other content on there, but it's still Eve, you find you're going to be okay.
Yeah, the rule that they made actually only excludes Scion because he fits the description of two criteria which are important. The first one is that you are an employee, and that has certain, you either get paid or there's some kind of compensation. The second thing is that the people you work for are actually a gaming site, not an Eve fan site, which TMC is, because they cover other games that the Imperium members would be interested in. So he fits both the criteria, and he happens to be the only one that does. So from their perspective, they think that this is an attempt to kind of alienate him without actually telling him he can't do something. And CCP does work in that way. Not to say that this is true, but they do work in a way. If you look at the I Want ISK bans of, I think, 12 bankers, they are banned and they haven't really been told anything. But what has happened in the past is when they ban a banker, they hold him off for 6 months. And when he comes back, they say, hey, you're found innocent, but you're engaging in activity that can cause this sort of thing. So just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not telling him, don't do this. They're saying this may happen again if you continue this behavior. So they're not banning it, but they're saying like, the guy, we're going to do this again if we need to, and don't cry about it if we do. So CCP doesn't directly say we're going to force you to do something, but they will make it like impossibly hard for you to do it. Like Scion can run.
Yeah.
He can quit TMC and he can run if he wants to.
Well, even that, I'm sure he could run. At the end of the day, Lilu has said, she said on the interview for CSM Watch, when people apply, right, they'll go through a process, they go through the security process and the vetting process and that, and then at that point, once they've passed the security process, so when I say security, it's like checking their background of their character, make sure they weren't involved in illicit RMT, and make sure, remember I said illicit RMT, because CCP fully supports RMT that's legal, purchased from them. Yeah. Plexis, remember, Plexis RMT. This is the thing, a lot of people go, oh, Plexis is not, no, it is RMT, but anyway, the way that works is how it is. She said, basically, we'll get through that point, and at that point, if we then discover something, or we find out that they're working for one of our competitors, or somewhere that could potentially not be an EVE fan site, but maybe gaming media, that is purely media, and they earn their money from it, then we'll talk to them and say, look, actually, this, that, the other. And I'm 100% sure that if Scion runs, he'll be accepted fine. Because... Yeah,
it has precedent. It has happened before. I think one of the early CSMs had a woman from CVA who worked for a gaming company and gave away some secrets, apparently, and was dismissed. She was one of the first to break. She had a really long name. I can't remember at the time, but it's like Tanked something. It was an Egyptian name. It was
it rings a bell.
She was Dutch, but you can look her up. But so it has precedent that, you don't want to leak to competitors. What I'm curious about, and this is a very interesting issue because I think I can see it from both sides. CCP is basically saying, hey, we're entering a new environment here. We don't want our marketing details, our direction details for VR compromised this early in the game because we're ahead of a lot of people.
Exactly.
And you don't want that information getting anywhere else. And that includes like just what direction they're going, not just the technology, which CSM probably doesn't have access to. But has that really changed in the last year? I mean, why is this happening this year as opposed to last year?
I can tell you why. I can give you 30 million reasons why if you want.
Go ahead.
Well, $30 million investment into CCP and VR.
Yeah, I see.
That happened. And obviously,
that did happen this year, didn't it?
That happened this year. That happened in CSM 10's term, which they obviously would know about. And therefore, I'm guessing that the companies that invested and gone, or the angel investors or VCs or whatever have gone, you know what? We want to just make sure you're covered on this, so we're going to go through your legal stuff. And again, it's the same with anything. They'll go make sure there's no, back doors or anything like that. And that's exactly what happened.
That's a really good point that I hadn't considered. They got a new injection of funds, and that always comes with strings attached. I know I work for an ad agency, and I know when we get a client, they are saying, let's review your security so that our information doesn't get out through you. And let's make sure all these T's are crossed. And so that's that's very possible.
Exactly.
And maybe the best reason I've heard so far.
Yeah. And this is how it is. And Noisy Gamer has also reminded us that, he says, tell the truth, Scion got Digi to hack CCP and inserted the language into the white paper. That way Mittens could guilt him into running again. #winning CSM. And then he also reminded us that CCP disqualified someone from running last year because the company he worked for was a subcontractor of Star Citizen. So...
yeah.
Again, this is what happens. You may have a
passion. It has precedent, yeah.
Exactly. It's like me. I'm going to take the Funky Bacon example. Funky Bacon is a former EVE Radio DJ, still a member of the Gaming Radio Network family. He does his podcast and we release it here. He's still a friend of mine and that. He had a shitty CSM year. He did really have a bad year. He had some issues and tried to raise them up and whatever and this, that, the other. And, shit happened. And that put a load of shit on, did he really do this or whatever? But at the end of the day, that's how it is. And gaming media is gaming media. We're always going to talk about it. People have always said to me, you should run for CSM. And I'm like, no, I don't have the time. I just physically do not have the hours in the day to do it with my real life, with the stuff that I do voluntarily, totally New Eden Update, that sort of stuff, EVE Radio as well. and then putting that into that and realizing I've moved house. I now live with my girlfriend. We're happy where we are. We're good. I don't want to go and say that and say, actually, you know what, darling, I can't actually go on holiday with you in a couple of months because I've got to go to Iceland because I've got to sit about a computer game summit, stuff like all that sort of stuff. She'd be fine with it because I know she would, because she's amazing and that's how things are with that. The point being is I don't have the time of day. If I was sat at home on my own all day long, I would do it, no problem, if I could afford it. And that's what it is. So,
yeah.
But again, this is how it is, and
yeah. I'm against media people running for CSM because I feel like there's some overlap there that I'm not comfortable with. Like, I would not run for CSM because I report on what CCP does and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. First of all, I wouldn't want to compromise myself or even second guess what I want to report on. But other people have used it. Well, I wouldn't say they've used it as a platform to get their site more recognition or anything like that, but they walk an awfully fine line trying not to, to tantalizingly close line, not releasing information, but at the same time winking a lot and saying, something's coming, it's going to be really cool. Even just Twitter, people who use Twitter and stuff do that. So maybe it's not media people, but it seems like media people have access to a larger audience and can put stuff on there that they really shouldn't. But they are super players, right? Like,
oh yeah,
I mean, a lot of them. If you love the game so much you want to talk about it all the time, you're probably a super player, very interested in the topics and stuff like that.
Well, this is it. I agree with you on the media side of it, of having people to promote their site and that. Yeah, I kind of with that. The thing is with me, right? I wouldn't want to run. If I ran, I would stop doing radio and podcasting for the entirety of the thing, because I would always worry that I would sit here and talk about something with someone and they go, so what about this? What do you think about that? And I'm like, well, it could be such and such and that. And a prime example is Mike Azariah. Mike Azariah is a saint, and he does that. He knows where he can say and what he can't say. And he walks that line. He knows that he can't walk over that line, but he'll walk on it. And I couldn't trust myself to do that.
Well, he tells you, like, I can't go any further, He knows, like, in his mind he has a line and stuff. So when he appears as a guest, he's pretty consistently not crossing the line. Mm-hmm. There's been examples of the opposite of that, where you don't say what you're talking about, but you dance all around it, kind of giving a ton of hints. And that's what people read that, and they get mad. And so there was a lot of bite back about that.
No, there's always going to be.
By the way, if I could answer, Nosy Gamer, Mittens cannot run for CSM anymore. I don't know if that's a permanent block or if it has to do with contracts that they may have because of the Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. But even for that, he would have to resign from TMC as well. Nobody affiliated with TMC as an employee can run. Yeah. For various reasons, not just because of the new ruling, but because what was already on the books was, if you have a contract with CCP, you're not really allowed to influence it.
Exactly. It's one of those things, is why people have always said about Eve Radio, why doesn't CCP help run Eve Radio? And that's when we didn't want that, because we want to be independent and do what we want to do. And things like this that come around, you can't actually run for CSM because you're technically an employee of CCP or you're one of our affiliates and partners. Okay, we're an affiliate because we sell time codes, but that's it. It's the only thing we have with them that is affiliated.
I don't know what kind of contract you have, but I think we're talking about, like, if you're like, the Kickstarter was definitely a joint effort that had contracts involved and stuff like that. It was probably much bigger than being a special vendor of time cards. By the way, they still sell time codes?
Yeah, we still sell, well, they're Plexes now, but yeah, it's the same thing. We're one of the resellers. We're a first party. We buy them from them and sell them on to everyone else, as opposed to the third party ones where you have a site and you say, so technically I'm a third party reseller personally on my own site. So I have an affiliate code that goes through. It's just an affiliate link that goes through to the Eve Radio site, well, the Eve host site, and we do it there. But we get them directly from CCP, the same as Amazon do, and Marquee Dragon, and all the other places out there that sell time codes. On the site, when you go to look at them and it tells you where to buy Plex from on the secure part of their site when you go into account management, that's where you buy them from. So that's how that is.
So they used to be for 2 months, I believe. Does that mean they're two Plex?
No, when you buy the Plexes now, you buy them individually. So you buy a Plex at a time. So the time code used to be 60 days. And then when you got a 60-day, what you could do is take that 60-day time code into game, redeem it, and then you would get 2 plexes. Or the old way of doing it is where you'd sell the 60 days or the 30 days or the 90 days on the forums and whatever like that. They got rid of that because it was so convoluted and complex. So, and again, Noisy Gamer, don't buy from G2A. Exactly. No, really. Do you know what annoys me when you see the spam on Twitter and people putting them up for sale? Never buy anything from G2A. I'm sorry. But anyway.
I think they have a bad reputation for RMTing kind of things.
Well, G2A, it's not so much G2A because G2A is a marketplace, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Noisy, because everyone can sell it at their own price, so they can undercut. And the thing is, I think there are rules stating if you are going to do a sale, it has to go through CCP. So when you see like Eve Timecode or Shattered Crystal or whatever doing, or Marquee Dragon or even we're doing a sale, that's because we've authorized that sale from CCP. We can't sell them cheaper. We're just not allowed to. It's just the rules.
I see.
Again, that's what it is. You wouldn't want to undersell your product or undersell someone's product. You just wouldn't do it. It wouldn't not make monetary sense. Just wouldn't do it. But
so
anyway.
If there was RMT involved, it's got to be just people laundering through there. But he's saying since it's not an approved place, don't encourage it. Just go to approved places like yours.
Yeah, exactly. He says it's like a forum, but Riot banned them from League of Legends due to RMT. And again, similar thing. Riot have banned them. Riot are a big company. Again, it's just how things are. And, the whole thing of that.
Speaking of RMT, if I could talk about the I Want ISK.
Yes, go for it.
I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago, maybe, and that's what I was supposed to speak on last time, about I Want ISK, which is kind of a gambling site, and they run a gambling site with bankers. So I like to think of them as bankers, even though they're not. They're more like clerks that move money back and forth. Yeah. They use their own money to move money back and forth, therefore insulating the actual website I Want ISK. But that exposes those bankers to RMT, because if there's a lot of people constantly trying to get money through that place to launder it, because if you RMT money, you want to diffuse it as quickly as possible so that it's harder to trace. Yeah. And you do that through a gambling site because you put your money in there, they give you credit, you gamble, you take the winnings, and now those winnings, are they RMT'd winnings or are they legit winnings? And so it gets hard for CCP to crack down on that.
Exactly.
But what happens is they're exposed to anybody who basically puts money in there. And since it's their money, they're the ones that are taking the risk. So they're naturally looking constantly at suspicious people and policing themselves, which I don't know if people know that's how that works. Yeah. So what happened there is 12 of them got banned all of a sudden, and this came on the heels of Space Monkeys Alliance from the Imperium saying that they had turned in I Want ISK because they got access to behind the scenes. And those bans came on the heels of that, so people put 1 and 1 together and got 2. But it turns out that it may not have been SMA's information. It may have been information that was being worked on for months on a certain player who I listed him in the article. And this player is a big gambler and was moving money in there constantly in huge amounts. So he touched a number of bankers. So 12 bankers being banned all at once makes a lot of sense for that sort of scenario. And as well as, giving away a lot of money to other people. So when they cracked down on that guy, who apparently, I can't confirm this because nobody will talk to me about it, admitted to RMT, then all that money that he's moving around, it becomes dirty and everything gets frozen around it. And that's kind of what you're seeing. That may be one scenario. Yeah. I've heard nobody's been unbanned from I Want ISK. They're still banned, and they're constantly, calling and saying, hey, when do I get more information? And there is no more information, because when CCP does some kind of investigation, they shut everything down and they leave you in the dark. And you can be there for 6 months. You could be there for 5 days. It doesn't, they're not even going to tell you how long it's taking. Yeah. But I've heard, and this is a rumor, that some of the people that were given money that were not bankers or associated in that way, and probably a lot easier to track their money, have been rolled back. Their bans have been rolled back. So they'll probably take care of the bankers last because it's the most complicated stuff to look at. And also you might, like I said before, leave them in the dark quite a long time so they kind of reconsider being bankers for I Want ISK. And I just want to say thank you to Krem for letting me know that the Twitch link was wrong. It's not Eve Radio Love, it's Eve Radio Live. Again, I've done that 3 or 4 times today. When I've gone to type live, I've typed love because the I and the O are right next to each other, and I've got a new keyboard, and I'm not looking. So,
Yes, no, we're on twitch.tv/EveRadio Live, not EveRadio Love. It's just, I've redone it. Again, EveRadio Love.
What's on your mind? Moved in with your girlfriend?
Oh, fucking no. Oh, fucking no. I like that one. But no, yeah, the whole I Want Isk thing, and again, the whole RMT thing. I'm gonna kind of pull the curtain back here a little bit. It must have been 4.5-5 years ago. An ex-Eve Radio DJ who's no longer with Eve Radio, hasn't been with Eve Radio, asked me if they would launder some money through the lottery that I used to run for them. So basically what they were going to do is they were going to give me some money and make sure that they win the lottery so it comes back out. And I went, why would you do that? And they're like, oh, because I want the money cleaned. And I went, what do you mean cleaned? They went, well, I'm not sure where we got it from. And I said, look, is it RMT money? They went, no, of course not. Of course not. Eventually, I got them to admit to me it was RMT money. So I said, no, I'm not taking it. And I said, if you ever approach me again about this, not only will I go to CCP with it, which I did in the end, not only will I go to your alliance about it, which I did in the end, I will make it my life's work that you get banned as quickly as possible.
Well, it just shows you how informal RMT is. It's the great, Satan of Eve, because it shows somebody cashing out their investment in Eve, and you can group, what is it? I forget what the word is. Group source, or basically make everybody else work for you, and then you can take that money and cash out. That's just reeks of unfairness.
Yeah.
So people hate it, but it's a very informal process. I think I've been through 3 or 4 major alliances in nullsec, and I've come across at least a couple times, 3 times, people saying they want to sell their account. And I was like, oh, really? Like, how much ISK does an account cost? And they're like, no, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. And so it was implied that they want to sell it for real money because they're trying to cash out. And I can see that if you're playing a game for 3 or 4 years, you're paying a bunch of money to play it. At the end of that, you're like, God, what do I have to show for it? Nothing. Well, at least let me sell this investment that I made inside the game so I can take that money and feel better about leaving, I guess, on their way out.
Exactly. And again, it's just how it is, people have always said to me, oh, about this, what about that. I said, look, if there's a way to actually get the money out legitimately, which there are a couple of games out there that you can do it where they act as a bank and they do get the money out and all this and all that, fine.
Yeah, it's Second Life and also Europa.
That's the one, yeah. There's that. There's a couple of games out there that do it, and they legally have to be banks to do this. They legally have to be a bank. So, they're there and they are banks, so they hold the money. But anyway, do it.
Well,
fine.
it's kind of a dirty business in that if you allow that to happen, you're attracting a whole different element of player. Right now, and I'm not kidding about this, there are players that use Eve as a gambling site for themselves to relax in. That's what they do. They gamble, and they do it in a way that they would lose less money. But even so, people will get their tax refund of $5,000-$6,000, and it's extra money to them because they didn't account properly during the year, so they have extra money coming back to them, and so they use that money as kind of like a surprise gift. They buy themselves a bunch of Plex, and all they do is gamble it away.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how they play Eve. That's their mini game.
Exactly. And again, it's the slightly different, the slightly different thing is that's for the US when you get your tax rebate, your tax refund. In the UK, it's slightly different. It's different, and most European states are slightly different. So you don't just get a tax refund straight away. You have to apply for it if you think you're your thing. And the bad side of that is if you apply for it and they work out that you actually owe more tax, you have to pay that motherfucking tax. So that's why nobody applies for tax refunds. Because then you're like, oh shit, and they turn around and say, actually, you underpaid tax this year, owe us another £1,000 or £2,000. You're like, oh fuck, I haven't got it.
They get themselves into trouble.
Exactly. So
yeah. Well, but it's just interesting to me how many different ways Eve can be played. Now, let's say you were open up Eve as a place where you could cash out, right? Because Eve's like a casino. You can pay in all you want, but you can't cash out.
Yeah.
But let's say you were to open that, people would come to the game in order to try to find ways to make money, and that could destabilize the economy for everybody.
Exactly.
I don't know if people realize how much this one gambling site makes, but they're in the trillions, clearly. I've seen the list.
Oh, definitely.
iWantISK did not open their books to me at all. I had to go through a different source, but I was able to find who they're paying for the war against SMA, Space Monkeys Alliance, and I was astounded at the amount of money they're paying constantly, every month, every week. I don't know what the contract is between them, but I could see the amounts of money that we're moving. So the amount of pressure that SMA is under is tremendous from iWantISK. And the thing is, they have limitless pockets.
Of course
because
they do.
everything they spend, they make it right up.
Oh, exactly. And this, again, I don't want to harp back to the whole Summerblink days and all that, but again, it comes to that, where Summerblink was different because it technically was RMT, it was RMT in a different way, and then you look around and they're like, well, we're going to RMT it in a different way, and it was convoluted, and it was bending the rules. That just was disgusting to me. I hated the fact that they're like, oh, we'll go there, and when you buy a Plex from there, you'll give us whatever, you'll get the Plex from there, and you'll get a guaranteed 200 million to gamble away, and then magically you get something in Ging. And because people are doing it, and it's a vicious cycle. I'm not going to go into it now, but not only short of me, that was bad. The R1 one as well. They're getting trillions and trillions every day of ISK because people gamble, because gambling's addictive. Everyone knows that. And I'm not going to have the allegations of RMT or whatever. Yes, there are out there, and you've clearly shown that stuff is out there and that. And that's it is,
Well, it's funny because I actually wrote an article on why gambling is so affiliated with EVE. And you notice that correlation? I don't know if other games have the same kind of correlation. There's a lot of gambling sites. Before that, there's a lot of lottery sites. And it has to do with really the way the brain is set up and how addictive behavior forms and what it forms around. And part of it is there's a process addiction. There's also a gambling addiction.
Yeah.
These are now seen as real addictions because they work on the same pleasure system that cocaine works on and motivation works on. And I wrote an article on it, but I got so depressed writing it that I didn't publish it.
That's the thing. You've probably still got it, and you'll put it out if you want to. It's one of those things.
I've got 4 or 5 articles sitting on the shelf.
That's the thing. You write them, and Dirk used to say this to me, and I used to do it as well. I used to write stuff, and you get to the point of I don't want to put this out, and you never do. You just leave it there, and sometimes you delete it. Just to highlight what Kremlik has said in the Twitch chat. Speaking of which, isn't the CS:GO skin gambling that got hit this week as well? And plus the related life in SC2 got taken out for match fixing and gambling on said matches. It's not just EVE. It goes everywhere. It's 100% everywhere. If people can get money out of something and make money out of it, they'll do it, and it's so bad. And again, Noisy says you can see G2A, but which is redeemed, but you get all of your accounts banned, and that's where you can't buy Plex with bad money either. Well, technically you can buy Plex with bad money in game. If you've got bad ISK, so a laundered ISK that you've bought and you haven't got caught, you could buy Plex and then use that Plex and sell it back. But then that still got a chain, and everything can be tracked. Everything can be tracked.
It's a matter of how much is it going to take us to break these guys?
Yeah.
Work. Is it worth it?
Exactly.
I think there's a lot of people who are overlooked for that reason.
Yeah. Lamal Tashin says, I have not gambled in EVE. Is this a US thing? No, it's just a game. It's just an EVE thing. You can go, there are various EVE gambling websites out there. One of the legitimate best ones out there is EVEBet. Used to be a sponsor of the lottery on this network, and and they're a great site out there. They do a lot of stuff. The only problem is when they get that big, that you then have the point of potentially people might go, well, how are we going to monetize this? How are we going to get stuff out of this?
Yeah, the gamblers from iWantISK are actually all over the world, and they sit in a chat room just like a TS3 room, and they kind of keep each other company. In fact, a lot of the guys that are banned are still there hanging around playing other games together waiting. So
exactly.
All over the world, and iWantISK kind of has a little community of their own where they just kind of hang out with each other, almost like a corporation, really.
They do. And again, that's how people are. Some people are like that. And all this discussion came all the way about talking with an interview with CCP Lulu. I just want to link it back to people. We're talking about this, and we're talking about stuff, and that's how it is. But again, that was a good interview to read. Where else? Oh, we've talked about that. Let's have go on. Well,
if we want to continue on the CSM, there's this thing that I've been talking about. You're going to have Lancaris on tomorrow or next week.
Yeah.
And, he runs this CSM Watch, which also sponsors a lot of the interviews with CSM candidates, and so they give them a half hour to an hour, I believe, to talk about their playing. And they ask them good questions, and they try to get, I think some of them have value, some of the interviews and stuff. But at the end of all that, they have a show that kind of just goes over maybe the last 2 weeks of interviews where they kind of have these specialists on, including Nosy Gamer here, who's I admire very much, very smart guy. And they kind of talk about, who were the candidates? Were they good? Were they bad? It's kind of like RPing a political punditry show. So I was questioning, is that worth it? Because not worth it. Of course it's worth it. They're having a good time. People who listen to them are having a good time, maybe getting frustrated, maybe saying, yeah, I totally agree with you. But of course it's worth it in that sense. But what I'm thinking of is CSM doesn't really allow judgment on candidates, because people, the only thing that people bring to the CSM, in my opinion, are who do you represent? That's kind of the only legitimate question. And maybe what's your temperament? Can you actually talk with people? Because that's really what's required in CSM. Do you have a constituency of people you represent? If so, are you able to communicate for them? Those are some legitimate questions. But it really goes off the rails sometimes when you start talking about, things like, and I'm being facetious and joking here, but like, oh, this guy sounds like he has blue eyes, I'm going to vote for him. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it really should be, kind of like, here are the facts, here's what we dug up, instead of advocacy in any way for any candidate, because now you're just using, that podcast as a platform to advocate for people that you like, and that really shouldn't happen.
Exactly.
I don't know. Maybe it should. I don't know.
The thing is, again, there was a whole thing going on the TweetFleet Slack yesterday in the CSM channel. The Matani and someone else were chatting about stuff. Let me have a look back, see if I can find it.
Yeah, CSM on the TweetFleet Slack, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, they're having a brawl in there.
It was yesterday. I was sort of... overnight there's a massive thing about it, but Matani's always in there talking about stuff, and there was one guy going back and forth about something. And I just turned, and I was agreeing with Matani on some of the content and he was saying, some of the things he was saying. And the point is the CSM worth it? And I was like, well, yes, it is. Otherwise, CCP would not think that they're the way it is.
Well, the way Lilu sees it, and she's explained this in a radio interview with Lancaris right before the new rules came out, she was saying, like, yeah, it is worth it because these guys, they are a big, because they represent a constituency and all the players, they filter out a lot of bad stuff, first of all. But second of all, they kind of put together the bigger themes and bring them to CCP. That saves CCP a ton of man hours listening to individual people talk, or even just a group talk about what they want to see. Now they feel like it's an extra way to filter in lots of people, and so it's very legitimate in that way.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are saying, oh, this is the last one. I can't believe they're doing it, because CSM is so useless.
Yeah.
I don't think it's useless. And if you watch them and if you listen to them, I don't think it's useless. Scion was one of the better CSM members I've seen. I said this when I was at EN24. I've said it before. I'm actually an NC dot. I'm not a part of Imperium. But for me, he would have been my first vote. Because of the questions that he was asking and the quality of the thought behind those questions. And he's going to be a real loss, in my opinion.
Yeah, but then the point, that the counterpoint to that is, I'm gonna be the sort of devil's advocate here. Yes, he's going to be a real loss from the CSM, and yes, he's still under NDA for a certain time, and this, that, the other. But the stuff, not so much the stuff that he does know, but the stuff that he can comment on, and now have free reign to comment on as much as he can, obviously respecting the NDA, and that he can go out and spitball and go, I'm going to talk about this and do massive things. That's what I would do. I'd love that.
Well, yeah, but he's got 5 years to wait out before he can get into anything. But that doesn't curve his, there's no way, if he tells his opinion and doesn't tell explicit details, that they're going to come after him in any court, because it's an international court, first of all, or not international court, but you have to cross lines, boundaries. And then second of all, to put a circumstantial case together, it's going to be that would have to be a vindictive action. I don't think CCP is going to do that.
No.
But so he can talk about some of the stuff, and it might gain him as, somebody who can talk about the CSM and the direction of EVE in a very informed way, which would be great. But inside, as far as influencing the game, I thought he was asking the right questions, and he was saying, are we going in the right direction? All the stuff he said, I kind of agreed with.
Exactly.
But here's the thing, and here's what I think is between the lines, is if you listen to what Lilu says, is she doesn't like it when people break down communication. And I wonder about that, if this is a targeted, let's get Sion out of here, which I'm not sure it is yet. Did they want him out? And if they did, for what reason? I can only think that he was somebody that was so intimidating that he shut down conversation.
Yeah. I guess he's done that before.
Some people and...
I guess he's probably done that before, considering the way, he's knowledgeable about the game, for one. And also the fact that he has all the people around him at TMC and, in Goons and all that, to talk to him about stuff and get informed in that. And he can make an informed decision. Noisy Games said, seriously though, Sion needs to get out there just for his mental health. Probably. But no, this is the thing, right? The CSM, as it is a great institution. It would be a sad thing to see it go. However, if it did go, focus groups would come forward, CCP would work it out better, they'd work a different way of doing it. And, and this can go back... That's
not free. You're gonna take a lot of time, a lot of CCP development time trying to pick the right people for that. They have to put those groups together themselves, and all of a sudden they have to administrate it. Also, I think that it's interesting to me because people want to run for CSM. When they run for CSM, they usually burn out of the game. So what's going on there? You're taking your best players, your best advocates for the game, and you're burning them out of the game entirely. So I think it is demanding, but I think probably something's going on in the CSM. And my impression is that you join the CSM and you're disillusioned because you're like, oh, crap, this game isn't, it's not run as well as I thought it was. The universe all of a sudden is tiny because I can see what's behind the curtains. Something happens where people get discouraged.
I mean, let's take this up from last week. Darius Johnson, former CEO of Goonswarm, CSM 1 and 2 delegate, and former EVE developer CCP Screegs. His NDA is now over. His NDA was completely over. So he went to Reddit and said, let's talk about EVE history. And it basically turned into an AMA.
That was on the heels of a Crossing Zebras article where he blasted Sion and he blasted New Goons. And what you're seeing there is a conflict between what people consider old Goons and new Goons. The new Goons are kind of corporate. They're organized. They want to professionalize themselves. They've grown up. They've been at this game 10 years, and they're looking around saying, we can't act like kids anymore, and we have something here. We have a community of thousands that we've built. Let's keep that going. For some people say for monetary reasons. I doubt that, actually, because I just don't think there's that much money in it. But I think it's kind of like it's a new thing. We haven't seen this sort of thing before where you have this many people around different games combined. You used to have clans of people that would play different games, but those were considerably smaller. This is a whole culture they've built, and they're trying to preserve that using TMC, but also inside the game as well with the all the organization they do. A reaction to that is people who say like, hey, wait a minute, we're goons. We used to just go into a game and destroy the game and ruin everybody's fun. And that was actually Darius Johnson, the author of the article, and also the AMA on Reddit. Yep. His whole line was, we're not here to ruin the game, we're here to ruin your game.
I think that's been the old goon mantra for years, hasn't it? Everyone's known that's the sort of thing everyone knows. And as Kremlik in the Twitch chat says, goons in EVE equals goons in other games, thankfully. This thing, right? I remember back in the days of WoW, where Goonswarm would take Wintergrasp in 25 to 30 seconds. They would literally, they found an exploit, a way of working it, and they got into a certain position, got in, they took the thing, and they just constantly kept it over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, and they basically go into a game and cause havoc and have great laughs for themselves while they do it at the expense of everybody else. And that was what Darius Johnson was kind of about. That was something that, I don't know if he pioneered it, but he was definitely in favor of that sort of lifestyle. So he comes back and he's out of NDA, so I guess he can say some things. He said some things he probably shouldn't have about CCP during that, about security issues and stuff like that. I think he outed himself on his employment situation with them and how it was terminated. Yeah. He went back and erased all those comments, but they were out there.
It's the internet, though. Once it's up, it's never gone.
Well, people who saw it,
Exactly.
nobody screenshotted it, but yeah, so like that was the old goon way of doing things, and it just seems like that can be fun for a while, but do you really want to grow up and do that?
Exactly.
So I think that's the conflict you're seeing, although there is a sub-context to all this as well, which is it's hard to investigate because it takes just personalities into account, but when you look at what has befallen everybody, the comments that Andy made that, oh well, Mittens is just really using TMC as a way of getting money, basically RMTing, because, well, everybody uses the term RMTing, but basically making money off the players that he's kind of he's harvesting the players basically, which is actually not that different than what I was saying when I was at EM24, saying, look, instead of people going after the cash, Mittens was very smart. He's going after the people. And I've understood what I said was kind of from an outsider perspective. Now that I'm an insider, I can tell you that it's not quite what I was saying, and it's more interesting than even that. But I'll get to that in some article later. But as far as Andy, when he was departing, he was saying like, oh, these guys are all about money. I want to be all about the game and fun. Of course, he'd been, more or less gone, I believe, or, very inactive. So was Blarf, very, very inactive. These guys were inactive, but they wanted to hold on to their positions because they'd been there a long time. They felt they deserved that. Well, Scion is a pragmatist, and, he looks at merit, and he says, well, we can't have absent leadership in these things. Alliances fail cascade when leaders go away and sit on their crowns.
Exactly.
And so he says, if you're not going to do the work, then you need to get out of the way. And that caused the split, and that caused a whole, avalanche of Scion's the guy that's pushing us out. He's taken over Mittens, and we have no more influence. And so they got really upset about that, and that's what motivated a lot of this. And people have been, used as proxies to make attacks and that sort of thing. That's very much from I would say, a Scion's camp point of view, because it favors that narrative and stuff. But I'm sure there's some truth to it, because if you look at the evidence, it seems to point to that. I think Andy said that he wanted to, this whole Imperium thing was too big and too safe, and it's not fun anymore. So what's he do? He grabs his guys and they go over to PL. That's dangerous. Py's a risky place to be.
Yeah, the difference is when you look at PL's slightly different than nomadic lifestyle. Yes, okay, they're still Andy's on here.
Your supers are not going to get killed if they're in PL.
They've gone from one blue donut to another blue donut. Let's face it. Okay,
from one secure situation to another.
The size of the donut has changed. It's gone from a big one to a slightly smaller one with more sprinkly frostings on it. But yeah, that's what happens. But then if you look at Eve as a game over the last, let's say, 4 years, has changed from let's go and fuck up with people's shit and blow them up and just do it for fucking lols and kill you, to actually I want to be safe and do this and have fun with my friends, and I'm not going to jump in my supers now because of jump fatigue and stuff like that, but also it might get caught and we get lost and it's going to cost this and blah. I'm sorry, but that's a computer game. At the end of the day, what we've got to remember this is EVE Online is a computer game. A lot of people forget that it is a computer game. And, it's just...
well, EVE is real, though. It's a real computer game. The conflicts that you're seeing are social.
I suppose.
I mean, it's a platform. It disguises behavior, which if you look at EVE, where, if you look at Reddit, you look at EVE, I think a lot of the stuff it's the stuff that turns me off is the self-righteousness of position. And I include myself in this group, but it's kind of like you get into comments or you get into forums and you kind of stomp your feet and declare how right you are about something, and it's important. That's not really about the game. That's about you and about just the social net that we're in, that we want to be heard. We want to have a voice in that. I think that supersedes the game. It's a personality thing.
It's just this is the thing. Go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is the thing that goes with it. You again, as I said, EVE's a game, and that's how it is. But when you're having fun with a game and you're enjoying it, and and doing this, it's all well and good. Yeah, great. And when you're, when something doesn't go your way, you're pissed off. You throw your keyboard, you break it.
I like this comment by Kremlik. He uses Twitter with guns.
I love Krem. Krem's actually a friend of the show. He hangs around. Is he in TeamSpeak? No, he's not in TeamSpeak. Although I'll tell you, come on, we'll talk about it. But no, the thing is, I love this sort of stuff. And again, that's what gets me to think. But get this. outside of shooting someone in the face. For example, if I was to get into my Pandemic Legion corp, because I'm in Pandemic Legion, didn't you know that? Actually, I'm not. I'm in Pandemic Legion, but whatever. Long story short, we made an alliance, whatever. If I was going to go and shoot you in the face, Matterall, and that would, flinging obscenities and that across the battlefield, and then I meet you at FanFest or something, and I have a beer with you and chill and chat and whatever, because at the end of the day, I take that side of the game differently to the other side of the game. Some people take it so seriously that when they go to FanFest, they call someone else's girlfriend fat and slap them in the face, and it starts a war.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the good things.
Yeah. I mean, bad forum posting has started major wars that have lasted months. It's
exactly.
It's definitely generated by, I remember Sort Dragon got into a skirmish with Pro God Legend at one of the fan fests over his wife and her dignity, and that turned into, I'm declaring war on Noli because just because. And you knew why.
Exactly. But
and also, there's been split ups of, the .bros, which was a predecessor to N3, actually broke apart because, there was some, Elo was having a romantic, I guess, relationship with somebody, and, online, whatever that means. And that actually caused a conflict in loyalties, and egos jumped in, and basically Vince and Elo broke ties, and that broke apart .bros.
Yeah. I'm just answering a comment in IRC about. Funnily enough, I'm doing station stuff in IRC about someone bought a GTC and a time code. They haven't had it yet, or whatever. I was like, well, it should also be in your account.
Yeah. All that to say that wars in EVE don't start because there's a lot of excuses for wars, and there's also a lot of emotional, very reactionary beginnings to wars as well.
Yeah, that's how it is, though. It's just how the game is like that, and it's a game, and I would never, ever want EVE to be anything else, because it generates such good content to people to talk about. For example, like, myself and Matterall spent an hour and a bit talking about stuff here, and, and that's how it is, and it generates, okay, yes, it generates people real life money when they have websites and that run it. Yes, full disclosure, I run a Patreon. I have a Patreon account that is run for all the stuff I do outside of EVE Radio, like Total EVE, like the New Eden update, all that sort of shit. The reason being is because, if people like it and they want to get some value out and donate it back, they can do. But that's how it is. And I'm sure that everyone else that does it out there does that because of that reason. I know I'm not going to get rich off this. I know I'm not going to be rolling around in a Bentley, blinged out and all this and that. That's never going to happen. It'd be lovely if it would.
I think that's so legitimate that you're asking, it's one thing to volunteer time, and let's face it, you could be doing other stuff and be more profitable, but you are volunteering your time to show up every week and do this program, do this podcast for other people's entertainment and information. And the Patreon is a very, very honest way of saying, like, I'm not trying to get rich, but if you could just make it so I don't go into a deficit doing this for you, I would appreciate it.
Exactly. And that's why I do it. And again, I don't normally like to bring it up on the EVE Radio shows, or even, on the podcast version, because I know I do stuff at EVE Radio. And again, out of that as well, EVE Radio is listener funded, and we rely on donations to keep us running. And, I'm just going to do the plug now for the station. We're taking donations for March. We're at £667 out of 500, which is 13% of the way through for March to help us keep running. But if you can't support monetarily, you can tell people about the show, the radio, and that sort of stuff. But also you can buy plexis from us. You can be a premium support, that sort of stuff. That helps us keep doing this and keeping the stuff running here. And, personally, I run a Patreon, but that helps out. And if I've got to the level where the hosting for everything I do is now covered for the entire year, which is great. If I get to the next level where the software that I use, is covered as well, even better. If not, I'll keep doing it. And this is what everyone's always said to me, right? Why do you do it? Is it costing you money? I do it because I enjoy it. I enjoy sitting talking about things with people, getting guests on, doing daily podcasts and stuff like that. And I know this week they haven't been that great because I've had stuff to go on and that, but I'm getting back into the swing of it and doing it all and this and that. I do it for that reason. I do it because I like it. And yeah. I'm sure you do the same thing, and that's why you wrote for yourself and then EVE News 24 and now TMC. You do it because you want to do it.
Well, you tend to do things that, and I'm not speaking about myself, I'm speaking about you. You tend to do things that you're good at. You're really good at this. You have a great voice for radio, and you can fill time, and you can keep topics going when topics kind of come to an end. And that's just, your skill is all volunteered, and you do it because for your own reasons.
Yeah.
But there's equipment there that you have to pay for, and it'd be nice if you didn't have to go into debt to bring that to people, since you're doing them a favor.
Exactly, and that's what it is, and that's where it comes down to. I've got a lot. I've got a lot invested in what I've done. I'm just looking around here right now. I've probably got. Let's have a look. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe £2,500, maybe £3,000 worth of equipment around me to do this, plus the software. So if you're looking at probably over the course of 8 years, 9 years that I've been doing this, it's 8 years, nearly 9 years, and that, I've probably spent maybe £10,000 of my own money on doing this, but I do it because I want to.
Yeah.
Not to get rich.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who want to say thanks, and you didn't invite me on the show to compliment you so much, but I'm going to anyway. I speak for a lot of people when I say thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. I've listened for a long time, and I've been very, very grateful for all the information that has come from this show. From you, from Dirk, from all your guests.
That's the whole point of it. I do it because you know what it is. I do it, and it goes to echo to what BC does. BC, Big Country, formerly radio DJ, now videocaster over at TMC. He does the Open Comm show because he wants to do it. It's the same reason, because he would just do it anyway, because they're only going to sit on comms, talk about the same shit that they always do.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always done it.
That's what's different about your shows. His is kind of a variety show now, right? Because he talks about TV, he has games, he has giveaways, they drink together. It's kind of an open comms thing. Which is why it's named that way.
Yeah.
And, but because it had Dirk on it, it was also a very informational show, because Dirk liked talking about topics.
Exactly.
And stuff. So there was, it's a different show now. I don't know if BC would admit that, but I think it is, because now it's a lot more. He has, girls on there now who are EVE players that are really cool, and that makes it a whole different vibe. And,
well, exactly. I've said that to him as well. Back when it was just Dirk, BC, Beta, and then Drade, and they're talking. Fair enough, that's what it was. It was done. They wanted to move it to a more professional standpoint, and I always said this, and this is why I've always sort of done it. I've always had a sort of doc, even if it's just for me to see what I want to talk about, maybe some topics. When my guests come on, I say, here's the doc, here's what I've got lined up. If you want to put something in there, put it in there. If you want to bring it up, bring it up. We do that because it's always good to bring it out there, and to do it. And plus, the reason I always like to podcast this, because I know that not everyone has the time to sit around and listen to this for an hour, hour and a half, whatever, on a Sunday afternoon. Maybe you want to listen to it on a Tuesday. Okay, we've got that on the Eve Radio Rewind. But maybe you don't want to be on your computer. You want to listen to it on your phone or your iPod. We do that. I podcast it. Or you want to watch it. Well, I Twitch stream it. I do that sort of stuff. I put it out there for the people. And
yeah. I used to do the Eve News 24 podcast, and I wanted to do it because I wanted to just kind of have an informational show and stuff. And I found that it was a lot of fun to do, but it was very difficult to get people together. It's very difficult to keep showing up on time. And I was kind of wrapping it up. We went a few shows over right before I left. But at Eve Vegas, I met somebody, and I used to get advice, keep it to 20 minutes, because that's, what all people can really listen to. And I thought, well, that's true. On my commute, it's about a 20-minute commute, so that's all I have time for. But when I'm gardening, I like these shows that last 2 hours, 3 hours. I'll follow their conversation wherever they go. And I did meet somebody at Eve Vegas that told me that he was a trucker, and I was really touched by how happy, how thankful he was that we were doing podcasts, and how much he liked our podcast. Because he's trucking all the time, and he loves tuning into Eve when he can't play it. And I just thought, that makes me want to do a 3-hour show right there.
Exactly. I used to do it. This show on a Sunday used to be 3 hours. It used to be 3 whole hours. Eve, tech news, gaming news. We went across the whole shit and shaboo and did that. And I know this. And that's how it is. Kremlik says, an hour when twitching is a limit. It drains you. And it does. I will admit it. I've twitched for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours before, where I've just been streaming, talking, playing games with friends here on TeamSpeak and that's how it is. It drains you. It does. But you know what? That's how it is. I think, unless there's anything you desperately want to go over, Matterall, because I know it's early for you. It's like, it's 8:15 in the morning, isn't it? So it's still early. It's still breakfast time. If there's anything else in the list that you want to go over, or you want to go over otherwise, we can kind of wrap this show up here now, if you feel like it. If what do you feel?
I could go a bit longer if you want to.
If you want to, yeah. Well, put it this way, I've got 15 minutes left of this talk bed, but I can go. Let's have a quick other look at this thing. So let's have a look. Well, we did the dev blog as well. Let's quickly touch on these. The Citadels, we talked about it briefly. They're being shot now because they now can't be shot because players will always find out ways of blowing things up that CCP put up.
Well, there's something interesting about this because there is a competition to gather, I believe, and I'm ignorant on this, I need to research it, but there's pieces of something you have to gather for Upwell Corporation.
Yep.
So there's a competition among players to gather as much of that as possible. And I know from my communications with Signal Cartel that they're heavily invested in getting their team to go out and gather this stuff. I believe CCP may name some items, in-game items, after the winners of this competition, something like that.
They may do it. You're going to get the BPCs. So basically, the initial winner is going to get the first one. There's going to be the winner is going to get a fully researched Astra House Citadel BPC, and then as it goes on further and further and further, there's going to be another BPC, 2 more BPCs, 1 more BPC, and an Upwell branded apparel for every captain who completes the research contract, and a Fortsar BPC. So basically, it's a massive competition. But this is the good thing. It's gathering communities together to do this and get it out there, exactly like they did with the Aurum events. Remember how they did the Aurum stuff what was it? They gave us free Aurum. And it was something that everyone did in game. And it was like the geckos and stuff like that as well. It's getting the community to go out and do stuff.
I thought it's very interesting that they're allowing in-game items to be named after player corporations or groups, like they did with Sovereignty. They allowed the Entosis links to be called, I think, named after the people who won the Sovereignty tests. Yes. But that's not new. Actually, the drone regions are named after alliances that were around at the time.
Yeah.
Is it Ethereal Dawn or?
Ethereal Dawn was Ethereum Reach, I believe.
Exactly. Yeah. And, all those regions were named after alliances, which surprised me that they would allow territory to be named that way. But I guess it's a tradition in EVE.
Again, that's how it is.
Player impact.
That is how it is, isn't it? The Entosis links, the one you're mentioning, you've got the variations. You have the Affirmative modified Entosis link, you have the Noir modified Entosis link, you have Pandemic Sphere modified Entosis link, and you have the Spectre Fleets modified Entosis link. And that's
so right there you have Spectre Fleet, you have Pandemic Legion, you have Mercenary Coalition, is it?
Yep. Sorry. Affirmative Dot, Noir, Pandemic Sphere, and Spectre Fleet.
Oh, sorry, Noir, yeah.
Yeah.
Not Mercenary Coalition, but Noir.
No, Noir, because that was before Noir were in Mercenary Coalition. But
yeah, they're both mercenary groups in nullsec, so.
Well, good, because Noir are now part of Mercenary Coalition as well now. They've joined forces with them. The Pandemic Sphere modified Entosis link, as people on the stream can see, they're 33 million ISK right now in Jita. And they're available, they're up there. So the BPCs have been dropping, and people they've been making them and done, and that's what it is. Again, it shows you what goes into it and what is it shows
how much players can really mold this universe.
Exactly. Caroline Star is all I'm going to say.
Yeah,
a massive thing there that CCP put in, and people said, "Oh, it's Caroline Star," and CCP didn't say that. Players said it, and then all of a sudden, CCP started putting it into news things, say this so-called Caroline Star, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, they actually used it."
Yeah, on the RP side of things, this is not unusual. It's that these, what's unusual is that these are kind of more organizational or PvP-based things that get things named after them, which is unusual. In lore, it's very interesting. You're right, Carolina Star, but there's also somebody who wrote up a fictional account of going and exploring wormholes into Jove space, and CCP responded with a picture, saying, this is the last thing you heard from this guy. And then there's also a peace treaty that was being negotiated that fell apart, and CCP grabbed that and ran with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the good thing about EVE. They can do this sort of stuff. CCP will write it in. Okay, everyone goes, oh, the Battle of Caldari Prime, it was scripted. Well, yeah, it's kind of a big thing where they want to make sure that it's going to go. They're not going to do both of them for the Titan to maybe crash into it and the Titan maybe not to crash into it. They had to kind of had a bit of influence on that in the first. But it's just how it is. But again, this sort of stuff where it comes out and that's happening, you can go out there and help them build them. And if you want to, you can potentially win you could possibly win, BPCs. And remember, when it gets to the level 4 of it, everyone who's donated some of the research things for it, everyone's going to get some clothing. So more branded apparel. So everyone who contracts it, that's always good. And this, allows you to go out and do it. The other thing as well, player speakers, if you want to speak at FanFest. Remember, FanFest is the yearly gathering of players in Reykjavik, Iceland, that CCP put together to celebrate EVE Online and the EVE Online universe. They are taking applications now for player speakers.
I recommend it. I spoke at EVE Vegas. I was speaking on an article I wrote for EN24, basically called The Brave Story, and it broke down the whole coup of that happened for Brave in the middle of this very pivotal time, and who was involved and who were the actors, and it turned into a mystery about who were the actual prime movers that were behind it all. And so it was an interesting article, and that got me an invitation to EVE Vegas, which I spoke at, and it's fun. If anything, I would recommend that you try to do it at the beginning of the conference so that you can relax and enjoy the rest of it.
Exactly. Well, kind of like Noisy Gamer did it in mid-conference last year. Middle of last year, nobody knew he was doing it. And like the middle of the security presentation, we're going to bring someone out. Noisy Gamer. Everyone's like, what? Noisy? What up? Again, no, but that's how it is. Everyone comes out and goes, that's not Noisy Gamer. And like, no, you've heard him speak. And it's like, no, you're not Noisy Gamer. No, what have you done with him? Why have you got his voice? Why have you done it? No. Noisy Gamer, friend of the show. Again, he's hanging out on Twitch as well.
Good guy.
I was at the end of FanFest. Okay, I didn't.
Actually, I hung out with him in EVE Vegas. I really liked him, and we hung out for quite a while. Compared a lot of notes.
Mm-hmm. It's always good to do. And again, this comes back to the whole going to player gatherings. Trust me, if you can go to one, please. Just go out there and do it. Don't be afraid, because not all EVE nerds are EVE nerds, and they're not all going to shoot you in the face or try and steal things from you, or run around. Yes, there are going to be some really antisocial people there that don't understand how to do stuff or how to talk to people, because they're human beings. But again, it's just how it is.
I think if you've not been to an EVE meet, it's really interesting. I wrote, again, I'm talking about my writing.
That's fine.
That's what I do. I wrote, before a writer, I wrote A Tale of Two Parties, which was basically comparing, because I worked in Los Angeles and I worked in the film business, I went to a Star Trek 2, I think something into the darkness party. And then the very next weekend I went to an EVE meetup, which was a big party for EVE. And I compared the two, and I called it a battle report, and I just compared the two parties and how they were different and how, which one won. I came out saying that the CCP EVE party was actually funner for me, despite like all the trappings that the Star Trek party had, right? Because we're talking about J.J. Abrams, we're talking about all the money the party was $200,000. So it's a big party. There's beautiful people there. There's a lot everything was just amazing and whatever. But I had more fun at the CCP party, which was probably less, because when I was walking up, I could just feel a big smile going across my face, because I felt like I was coming into my own group of people.
Yeah.
Where anything that I talked about, they would know about and tell me stuff about it.
Exactly. So I've had it as well. I've had it when I've gone to EVE meets. I'll be sitting there chatting with someone or whatever, talking about someone I know. They come and go, "Are you Wiggles?" And I look at my T-shirt and go, "No, I just stole it from him." They're like, "Oh,
yeah, you must be famous at those things."
This is the thing. I've had people come up and talk to me and said, "Oh, I've listened to your shows and they want to get some audio advice. Oh, what do you record?" And I tell them what I'm recording. Oh, so it's a lot of stuff. I said, well, no, you can start on anything. It's how it was. And I've advised people on what to do if they want to get into podcasting or broadcasting and that sort of stuff. And this is the one thing I will say to anyone out there, anyone listening now to this one live or in post, just do it. If you've got an idea that you think is going to be good, provided it isn't you waffling on for an hour about how great you are and how everyone should love you, and that, as long as it's something that is sort of semi-objective, do it, put it out there. And yes, it's going to be hard to start with, but you know what? Keep at it and do it and have fun. And this is the one thing: if you're not having fun with doing something, stop doing it. So,
do a lot of people approach you? And do you get non-stop people approaching you?
It's not so much non-stop. It's because I sit there and I'll have my T-shirt or my polo jumper on. I'll have EVE radio stuff on it and all that. But people just talk to me. Most people just talk to me. Oh, who do you fly with? Well, and then when I turn around and say to them, I don't actively play EVE. They're like, what do you mean? I went, well, I'm not actively in nullsec. I've done all that. I've done the whole nullsec thing. I've rented. I've been big alliances and corporations and that. I've done the HiSec thing. I've done a little bit of the work. I just like talking about the game. I like talking about the game with people who like talking about the game and discussing things. That's what I've always done.
Yeah, you know what amazes me is the devs. The devs must get non-stop. Everybody wants their turn with a dev.
Yeah.
And they somehow manage to be really patient through it all.
I've had that. I've had that when I'm at the last event in September. I'm there. I'm chatting with Fozzie about something. And I'm arranging a time to speak to him later on to record something. And all this and that. And people go, "Oh, Fozzie," and me and him are just having a chat about having a drink, chatting, chilling. People come up and talk to him, and he's like, "You're right." Yeah, I said, "Look, go do your thing." And he's like, "You sure? Yeah, go do your thing. I'll chat to you later." And he went off. And then, "Oh my God, I said, "Well, this is the thing. I know a fair few CCP devs, and I'm sure you do as well, Matterall, via what you've done media-wise and that. You get to know them, and you know them outside of their dev role. So you know them on Facebook or Twitter. You know them personally. You chat with them, you chill with them and whatever. And they're just normal human beings. But a lot of people go, "Oh my God, that's like Fozzie. Oh, that's Rise. Oh, that's Gold." Like that.
Well, I was pleasantly surprised by, all the people that people like. You can figure it out pretty quickly because they're so nice. But I was really happy to have met CCP Orca, who was really sweet. She was new to CCP.
Yeah.
I was also surprised by Rise. Was really cool. I expected him to be like, a real dick, but he wasn't. This is Kill 2. He's vicious, and that's his, when he was PvP and doing videos before other people, and he seemed kind of arrogant and everything, so I thought, well, this guy's just probably a jerk, and he's so nice.
That's just what it is. At the end of the day, they're human beings. You got to remember that.
Yeah, and Krakar, I guess, is just the sweetest person, and so is it's amazing to me. I can't say it enough how nice and patient these devs are.
Yeah,
that's like a whole nother character trait that they have to have besides being brilliant and good game designers or engineers. They also have to be these people that can withstand that amount of. Let's face it, we're not the most entertaining. We only want to talk about one subject, and we come at them in hordes when they're at these events. And
exactly.
I think I was talking to Torfi all of 15 seconds before 5 or 6 people formed around me to talk to him too, and I realized wow, it's nonstop for these guys.
Exactly. This is why when I go to events and I know them, I just say to them. It's like, for example, I'm a regular at Eve London because I live in London. It's like, it'd be stupid not to go there because I live in London. So when I get there, if I get there and Falcon's not already there, or I get there and he's there, I'll go to him. "Hi, how you doing?" Whatever. And then I go and I let him be, and that's it. And every so often we'll throw something at each other. And I'll be sitting there and I'll have a ball of paper or whatever, just throw it at me. He looks at me and goes, "What are you doing that for, man?" Whatever. It's just one of those one-on-one things. But you do that, and then you see the other players around him like, "Oh, where's your..." And he's got his friends there as well, and that's how it is. And remember, they're just a normal person. Just go and talk to them. Don't be a dick about it, But that's how it is.
Well, yeah, most it's just weird. Most people are very nice when they approach them and stuff. It's just they have what they want to talk about.
Exactly.
And I bet these devs just want to feel human every once in a while at these events.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think we'll leave it there. I think that's just about bang on. That's just an hour and a half. Just coming up to an hour and a half for the podcast. So, first and foremost, I want to thank Matterall for actually spending his Sunday morning with us, because it's, Sunday morning for him right now. It's 8:30 in the morning. You could have easily spent that extra time in bed.
Coffee and conversation. Don't mind waking up to that.
It's all good. Just want to... This is your moment. If you want to pimp out anything, let people know, obviously, Matani.com. If there's anything else you want to pimp out,
sure, thanks. I would like to say that we're trying to connect with our readers and get feedback from you, not just telling us when we misspell stuff. You can do that in the article comments, but just kind of getting to know who you guys are and more about what you want to see, and actually just meeting us and talking to us, just like if we were at a meetup. So the way we've chosen to do that is to use Tweet Fleet Slack, and our station there, our channel is hashtag TMC-public. And so we're in there a lot. We're kind of like monitoring it. Matani's in there. So are a lot of our writers. So if you want to get in touch with us or even tell us about something that you've heard or want to follow up on, or hey, are you guys, why don't you investigate this? Or maybe you want to even think about writing for us. It's not that we take everybody that can write. You certainly don't have to be in the Imperium. We'll take anybody who knows anything about Eve and other games as well. As long as you can put sentences together and you're engaging and you treat people well, kind of thing.
Exactly.
And I would like to point out that we have a really good writer. She goes by Elizabeth.
Yes.
Sophia Elizabeth, and she put out a part 2 to her Outside the Wire.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fictional thing, and we encourage you to read it because it's really well written. Good writer.
She's amazing. I will say this: the stuff that she writes is like, you're like, okay, she wrote this, and this is this is a mature rated show, but whatever. This is fucking awesome.
Yeah, so read that. That's part 2. She has a part 1 in there too. So we also have weeklies stuff from. I want to make sure I get it right. This Week in Science from Fiery, and those are also good articles, very scientific. So we offer a lot of different things. It's not just Eve, but there's stuff on science. There's a few things on other games and stuff like that. But give us your feedback. Meet us in TMC-public. And help us become a better news site for you.
Exactly. And again, at the end of the day, the more people that contribute and write out there and read it, the better the content will be, and it gets better and better and better and better and better until we all get super happy.
You're away with words.
Well, then the thing is, though, somebody then wants to shoot someone else in the face, and that'll be a problem. But yeah. As for me, as always, you can find normally what I do on my Twitter feed. Oh, Matterall, you're Matterall373 on Twitter, if that's correct. Is it 373?
Yeah.
Yes.
Same with Gmail.
Yep, same as Gmail. So hit him up on Twitter at Matterall373 if you just want to say, oh, that was wrong, write it properly, or something like that. For myself, obviously, twitter.com/wigglesgrn, facebook.com/wigglesgrn. You can find me all there. You can find everything that I do normally there. Also, toadleave.com, the usual place that I'm going to pimp as always, because why not? It's a little news dashboard that Dirk was lazy, I was lazy, so I made somewhere, instead of us prepping for shows and going multiple sites, we went to everywhere. We've just completely redone some of the logos on there. We've also now put the EVNT feed on there because they're putting articles out, so we'll put there on there. Still looking at a few more logos to get redone, but we've just redesigned, sort of rejigged the logos so they're all sort of similar size again now. We're still doing some of them. Load of Twitch feeds on there as well. Tweet Fleet on there as well. Also, new Eden Update, the daily podcast, which hasn't been daily this past week because I've had things to do, but still, that I put out going over some of the news on EVE Online from all the big websites and stuff like that. So it just leaves me to thank Matterall for spending his morning, my afternoon with me. And thank you, the listener.
Welcome, and thanks for inviting me.
Hey, no problem, dude. No problem. I'll get you back soon. I'm basically trying to go around. Also, England sucks. It doesn't BC. BC sucks, but whatever. I'm trying to go around all the people and get things. As I said, next week we'll have Blank Tharis on from CSM Watch / Stable / those guys over there. So they'll be on here next week. So it just leaves me to thank everyone for listening to this either live or in post or watching the podcast. Thank you very much. Remember, EVE Radio is still here. We are still going. We are still kicking. Donations are always welcome. We're going to kick it off with some music. Trancey Cream Club Classics today on the show. So thank you very much. And, well, peace out for the podcast. Music will carry on in a second.